I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're proud to introduce you to a very, very talented author. His name is Raleigh Chiwuta, and he has written an introspective book called The Dichotic Dilemma, The Fabric of Life. The book is a collection of poetry and prose, and it offers a deep exploration of life's complexities from the perspective of a young African-American man seeking understanding and peace amidst the challenges of racism, war, and injustice. We're delighted to have this very talented author and poet join us here today on Spotlight. We thank our team at Crime 7 Media for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his wonderful book. The links are below this interview. Raleigh, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, the privilege is all mine. You must realize that I'm just a humble man. So to be sitting face to face with a man as distinguished and accomplished as yourself is something to adjust to. But I'll do my best to express myself without getting too overawed. So I hope you can be patient with me.
Well, thank you, sir. I think you're overly humble because I'm very impressed by you and your work as well, because you've done a great job on this book. Let me ask by asking, but I do appreciate your kind words, of course. Let me ask you what the title Dichotic Dilemma means and why you labeled your book that.
So now that's a very interesting question, and it's a very interesting journey. So the first thing I'll say is that a lot of my writing is actually what I'd describe as a stream of consciousness. So once I've written it, in many ways I have to understand it myself. And such was the nature with the Dichotic Dilemma. I wrote the first draft when I was 21. And it was actually, I gave it to my dad, my rock, my intellectual sounding board. And at that time, he said, the ramblings of a social commentator. But I was also clear that I had to readjust it. So I re-edited it 5 years later. But it's only now that I'm really settled about what the dichotic dilemma really means. So in many ways, in many concepts of life, many philosophical disciplines, religions, we have the ideas of good and evil, bad, duality. The dichotic dilemma is my understanding of that reality, because I was born in Africa, in Zimbabwe. So one of my first things to realize was the duality of race, if you wish, and that was something that I started to look into and try to understand as a young person, observing that colonial history, if you wish, and how that interplay affected me as a human being and affected the whole world, if you wish. So the dichotic dilemma is me understanding the complexity of that world and distilling it, if you wish, because the natural assumption is to say that, well, I'm being treated like this by this group of people because they're evil or whatever you assume. But the dichotic dilemma is actually becomes a way to look through that paradigm and actually discover the humanity of the person on the other side. And then and then when you discover the humanity, something new happens, and the way you aggregate all of those injustices that you are angry about and that whole story you have about history, it becomes something new. And then new possibilities arise. So that's the dichotic dilemma for me. And I hope I've said it in a way that's translatable.
Oh, absolutely. Very articulate, very eloquent in your explanation. One of the dichotomies I found in your book is the language you use between poetry and prose. Why did you decide to do part of it in poems and part of it in prose?
Sir, it's all been a it all was and has been a very organic process. So during my teens, I mean, teens are very difficult anyway, you know. But I was an exceptionally difficult teen because I had so many questions about existence, about reality, about all of the things that we face that challenge us as human beings, you know. And my foil was my father, you know, and he entertained me for a long time. But I think one day he was just quite tired, sitting on the computer. I can see it in my mind, and he said, "Why don't you just write all these things down?" So, epiphany. I just went to the local store, the W.H. Smith, and I just bought these notepads, I think 10 or so, and I just started writing. And it was voluminous, nonstop. It lasted about 3 months, an expulsion of all of these thoughts and feelings and frustrations across the spectrum of human existence. And then once that process finished, there was an emptiness in my mind, at least in my consciousness. And then it was, okay, so what do I do now? So the next logical thing was to, well, not logical, but what happened next was, well, let me write it down. So I went and bought an old computer, and I just started writing. And then it just happened in that way that I wrote the introduction, and then I'd write the poem, and then I'd analyze it as a way of understanding for myself what I meant when I wrote that, as I suppose how you would read poems and try and infer meaning. So I was inferring meaning, if you wish, from my own writings, and that became the process of writing the book.
What do you hope readers take away from your book?
Well said. Thank you so much for asking that question. And it's a very pertinent and important question, and really is the foundational reason why I wrote that book. Reality of reality is that we can all see that, you know. We know the world has challenges. At the moment, there's the conflagration between Israel and Palestine. Just a few years ago, you know, Russia, Ukraine, all of the travails across the world, and the injustices and all of this. So, you know, the question you ask yourself is, how do we resolve our problems, you know? And we know the troubles of the human condition didn't start just last year, you know? This has been our state, if you wish. And what I've become aware of is, as a human being, you can only do your part. So the hope for me with my book is to engage the world in a conversation for transformation. The journey for me was overcoming my own prejudices, the way I had been socialized into reality, which meant that I had a certain point of view. And we all hold points of views based on the places we come from, the beliefs that we have been taught. And so my position is, let's have a conversation about what it means to be human in a way that in the next 100 years, perhaps when a child is born, they might not witness some of the carnage that we witness today. If I can influence 5 people, then that would be satisfactory. But of course, if I can influence more, then that'll be a blessing.
I think you're going to influence many, many people with your book. And I think a transformative conversation will evolve from what you have written between the pages of this book. It is a wonderful book. It is called The Dichotic Dilemma, The Fabric of Life. It is a collection of poetry and prose, and it offers a deep exploration of the different complexities of life from the perspective of a young African man seeking understanding and peace with all of the craziness that goes on in this world. Raleigh, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
So it's been an honor and a privilege. And thank you so much as well. Yes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of your kind words and all of your insight that you shared with us here today. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.